Inside the Republican Party, there's a lot of anger and bitterness and finger-pointing and blaming, and we got to change, and what do you say?
After crushing election results, Republicans seem to disagree on what the future of the party should look like. Is a GOP civil war looming? Juan Williams and Mary Catherine Ham will be here to analyze.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Ingraham, in for Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Disbelief and despair in the Republican Party. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. Well, since Mitt Romney lost in an electoral landslide on Tuesday night, I feel like I've become the chief psychologist for conservatives. Voters who were young conservatives, thinkers who were young conservatives in the 1980s, are now wondering whether all is lost. Ann Coulter was on my radio show yesterday.
If Mitt Romney cannot win in this economy, then the tipping point has been reached. We have more takers than makers, and it's over. A country that no longer is interested in conservative ideas, that it is interested in handouts.
This frustration and dejection is understandable. And I, like many conservatives, thought Mitt Romney would pull out a victory, and I, like many Republicans, am extremely disappointed. The autopsy of what went wrong is ongoing. There will be conflicting opinions on the cause of death for the Romney campaign and all those Senate races. I happen to think that Mitt Romney ran an overly cautious and defensive campaign, which allowed the other side to define him, perhaps the exception being that first debate. Some establishment Republican types say this requires the party, however, to be less conservative, to be more moderate. And it's no surprise that Democrats agree. I find that depressing. Conservatism won huge for the GOP in 2010, and it beat back a union-backed recall just recently in Wisconsin. But in just 2 years, a short period of time, it's become unmarketable? Nice try. To paraphrase George Will, for Mitt Romney, conservatism was kind of like a second language. He was never comfortable articulating it or arguing it. So, of course, Latinos and women and new voters, they weren't sold on it either. In that vacuum, they ended up buying the malevolent portrait of Romney that was relentlessly pushed by Team Obama and their super PAC friends. And, of course, it was very unfair. But the urge to despair in the face of all of this is a losing proposition. It gets us nowhere. 5 days after Barry Goldwater's landslide loss to Lyndon Johnson in 1964, conservatives, including William F. Buckley and Brent Bozell Sr., didn't waste time cursing the darkness. Instead, they founded something called the American Conservative Union, and they took it upon themselves to plot out a long and short-term strategy for their cause, which was conservatism. The pathway at that point was cleared for fresh voices and new approaches. ACU friend Ronald Reagan became governor of California in 1967, and the movement slowly but surely grew in popularity. In his 1980 victory, Reagan converted Democrats, not by adopting Democrat views, but instead by convincing them that conservative solutions offered the only hope for American renewal. We need to do that same thing again. And that's the memo. Now on to the top story, reaction. Joining me from New York, Republican strategist Dee Benke, and from Nashville, Tennessee, Republican Chip Saltzman, who was the manager of Governor Mike Huckabee's 2008 presidential bid. Okay, it's great to see you. We'll start with you, Dee, because I know you were a special assistant in the Bush years. And I can see from your POV on my sheet here, you think that it was kind of the Todd Akin type of Republican that sank this race for conservatives. Is that right?
Yes, Laura, and I do agree with you on the point that Mitt Romney, if he'd been a little more passionate, you know, it was always a struggle for him to be that way. And the first debate went very well, but then the Democrats were able to fill in a narrative with Akin and even Murdoch and some of this other language that is very detrimental to the Republican Party. I mean, we do have too many rich, old, guys. I mean, we just do. We need to have more women. We
Dee,
just
you sound like you're speaking at the other cable network. Rich, white, Republican guys.
It's the truth,
and,
Laura. In leadership, we need more women and young people. We just do.
Oh, well, we had a woman run in New York, one of the smartest women I know, Wendy Long, and she made some inroads, and she lost. We have Nikki Haley. We have other great women like Susanna Martinez. I think we're doing all of those things. But the fact that Republicans should become racial or gender bean counters, I think is a loser.
Not
but Dee,
bean
before
counters,
we get
we just
to Chip,
need to encourage that.
I agree, and I think we're doing a great job at that. But Dee, you work for George Bush, and the majority of voters still tag George W. Bush with this down economy. And look, I mean, we couldn't even win the argument on foreign policy in part because a lot of people are sick of the two wars that George W. Bush got us into. Well, I mean, that's just a fact. So I would submit that George W. Bush's type of Republican Party is just as much to blame for the loss of Mitt Romney as Todd Aiken in one state and Richard Murdoch in another.
Well,
we're dealing
George
with 8 years of Republicanism.
Latinos. He was very good with Latinos, and Kathy McMorris, Rogers, Kevin McCarthy. You know, we have some bright new leaders, and we need to have more of those. We just have
George
too many
W.
rich
Bush
old white
also George W. Bush's policies, spending and two wars, ended up also delivering Barack Obama into the White House. But let's start with you, Chip. Chip, your take on where we are. What do you think of my point here that Romney ran a defensive campaign, but he also did have to deal with the Bush baggage, credibility on spending, and a foreign policy that was frankly the byproduct of a hopeful but ultimately a rather confused and unsuccessful policy in the Middle East?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. First, let me say I aspire to be one of those old white guys. Some people might already say I'm already there. Well, I'd definitely be a rich old white guy, no question. That's where I'd aspire to be. No question that was a heavy load for Romney. But look, I would say to though thine self be true, we know who we are as a party. We're a center-right party in a center-right country. Conservatism didn't lose. Mitt Romney lost a race for the White House. And we got knocked down, but we dust ourselves up. We go and talk about what we believe in. And what you said about Ronald Reagan is absolutely true. True leaders convert the undecided and the unsure based on their ideas. They don't change their ideas to win elections. If we do that, we'll be in the minority for generations.
But Republicans need to have more positive language. I mean, we really need to be more positive and uplifting, and there wasn't enough of that. I mean, we ended up sounding like the party of no. Now we have that, and we have wonderful leadership, but I do think that we need to be very careful. I mean, we lost badly.
Dee, we lost badly in 2008. After a compassionate conservative, big government conservative, conservative believed in amnesty. That was the George Bush administration. That then ushered in Barack Obama, who had no foreign policy experience and no business experience, and now he's a transformative political figure. So I reject this idea that it's the stupid words of two Senate candidates who are really the problem in the Republican Party.
We need to change our language. We've got to be more inclusive. We've got to be softer. We have got to be more friendly. A lot of people think the Republican Party, they are mean, and they're old white guys. I'm sorry, that just is what I get all of the time, and we've got to change that. We've got to recognize our problem.
So that lost us the race in North Dakota and Montana.
Well, you know, we do need to make some changes, and we do need to make sure that we've got new leadership, young people, Latinos. We have to have minorities. It is very, very important that the Republican Party sees the facelift.
Dee, you win them over with a winning message. You don't win them over by just playing the bidding war for giving them more free stuff.
No, but we need to have new leadership, too. We have too many people in leadership that look the same, that act the same, that talk the same.
I don't know what that
changed.
means. Look the same. That sounds like lookism.
The demographics have changed in the country. They need to change in our party.
Okay, so Alan West was a black conservative. He lost.
We need more of him.
Condoleezza Rice is vilified still on the left. And before he bowed down to Barack Obama, so was Colin Powell. Justice Thomas still lives it down.
We need the Great Opportunity Party, not the Grand Old Party. Not the Grand Old Party. We need the Great Opportunity Party.
The legacy of Bush hangs over the Republican Party. I appreciate it. Dee and Chip,